evening. Good evening. It's good to be gathered here tonight for a very important reason, to give support and comfort and our love to Gretchen and her sons, and to feel how love resides in a community and how caring resides in a community among us. We're going to start with the evening service, which begins on page 13. And let's rise. And I'll also want to welcome those who are participating online from a distance. There's no distance. We're glad that you're here with us. והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, והרבה להשיבה פה ולא יאיר כל חמתו. אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו, ויום קוראנו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד. ברוך אדוני המבורך, Leolam va'ed. Let's turn to page 16, and we can be seated. And let's read together above the line. Praise to you, God, ruler of the universe, who has ordained the rhythm of life. The day with its light calls to activity and exertion. But when the day wanes, when with the setting of the sun colors fade, we cease from our labors and welcome the tranquility of the night, the subdued light of the moon and the stars, the darkness and the stillness about us invite rest and repose. Trustfully, we yield to the quiet of sleep, for we know that while we are unaware of what goes on within and around us, our powers of body and mind are renewed. Therefore, at this evening hour, we seek composure of spirit. We give thanks for the day and its tasks, and for the night and its rest. Praise to you, God, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai hamari v'ravim. Page 19. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amecha Amecha Ahavta Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amecha Amecha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachveinu v'kumeinu Nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha v'mitzvotecha li'olam va'ed Ki hem chayenu v'orech yameinu uvahem negei yomam v'layla v'avatcha lo tasur mimenu li'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Let's join together on page 21 with the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kvod Malchut Le'olam V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'divarta b'ham v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvelechtecha v'derech uvshavtecha uvekumecha ukshatam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisha'arecha. Let's continue quietly reading from the next several pages, and we'll join together on page 29. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's turn to page 30 and read together. We'll continue on to page 32. Our faith and truth rest on all this, which is binding upon us, that the boundless one alone is our divinity, and that no divinity exists but one, that we are Israel, community of God, that it is God who saves us from the hand of governments, the very palm of tyrants, who enacts great deeds without measure and wondrous deeds beyond all count, who puts our souls amid the living and who keeps our feet from giving way, who breaks apart the schemes of those who hate us, confounds the thoughts of any bearing us ill will, that it is God who made miracles for us in Egypt, signs and wonders in Ham's children's land. From one generation to the next, God is our guarantor, and even on a day that turned to night, God stayed with us when death's deep shadow fell. Let's continue. And even in our age of orphans and survivors, God's loving acts have not abandoned us, and God has brought together our scattered kin from the distant corners of the earth. And so now, God brings the people Israel forth from every place of menace to a lasting freedom. God is the one who brought the Israelites through a divided sea of reeds. There they beheld divine might. They praised and thanked the name and willingly accepted for themselves God's rule. Moses, Miriam, and all the Israelites broke out in song, abundant in their joy, and all as one, they said, page 35. Mi chamocha b'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, oseh fele, malchut charau vanecha, bokayam lifnei Moshe. Zeli anu veyameru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, leolam va'ed, v'ne'emar כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, ברוך אתה אדוני, ברוך אתה Adonai Gal Yisrael. Page 37. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ותקננו בעצת טובה מלפניך, והושיענו למען שמך, והגן בעדנו, והסר מעלינו, אויב דבר, וחרב ורע ויגון. ובצל כנפיך תסתירנו, כי אל שומרנו מצילנו אתה, כי אל מלך חנון ורחום אתה. ושמור צאתנו ואוהבינו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עם ישראל וכל יושבי תבל לעד. Ezra, would you come and read on page 41?
These things I know, how the living go on living, and how the dead go on living with them. So that in a forest, even a dead tree casts a shadow, and the leaves fall one by one, and the branches break in the wind, and the bark peels off slowly, and the trunk cracks, and the rain seeps in through the cracks. And the trunk falls to the ground, and the moss covers it. And in the spring the rabbits find it, and build their nest inside the dead tree, so that nothing is wasted in nature or in love.
Thank you. Page 43. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וימיכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא ויאמרו amen. Before we continue with the Amidah, I want to ask us to turn back to page 3 and join together in singing Eli, Eli, the beautiful poem by Hannah Senesh, who speaks of the depth of prayer, the beauty of prayer. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, hachol v'hayam, rishlu shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam, hachol v'hayam, rishru shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam. O God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. This is a time to be in an elevated posture, to rise as you're able, for the Amidah, which begins on page 45, and it continues through to 75. There is an alternative Amidah that I want to point out for those who are interested. It's on page 76 through the next several pages. So let's take some time for quiet prayer, prayer from the heart. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי אדוני צורי וגואלי יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי אדוני צורי וגואלי Be seated. The Reader's Kaddish is on page 87. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך ירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, ליעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו, אמן. תתקבל צלעות ההון דבות ההון, לכל בית ישראל קודם אבוהן דבשמיא, ויאמרו, אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיא, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ויאמרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ויאמרו Amen. Let's rise for the Aleinu on page 89. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is up to us to hallow creation, to respond to life with the fullness of our lives. It is up to us to meet the world, to embrace the whole, even as we wrestle with its parts. It is up to us to repair the world and to bind our lives to the truth. Therefore, we bend the knee and shake off the stiffness that keeps us from the subtle graces of life and the supple gestures of love. With reverence and thanksgiving, we accept our destiny and set for ourselves the task of redemption. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Ushemo echad. You can be seated. On page 101, there's a reading that I'd like to share before we spend some time talking together. We turn our thoughts to yesterday, to a world that lives only in our memory. As we recall the days gone by, we know the past is irretrievable. Yet through the gift of memory, we recapture treasured moments and images. We're thankful for the happiness we knew with those no longer here, with whom we lived and laughed and loved. We praise the eternal wellspring of life, who links yesterday to tomorrow. We affirm that despite all the tragedy bound up with living, it is still good to be alive. We understand that there can be no love without loss, no joy without sorrow, and may we have the courage to accept the all of life, the love and the loss, the joy and the sorrow, as we remember Gretchen's dad tonight, Robert Hughes, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be a blessing. And Gretchen, I want to invite you to come and, do you want to speak from there or here? From here, okay.
First of all, just thank you. Thank you for holding space for me and my family, for my father, whom you either didn't know at all, or some of you might have met him a time or two, but it means a great deal that you're here to support our family in this. And I think there are quite a few people that have decided to stream in tonight, so thank you for being there for my mom and for us. So this is kind of long, but I figure I'm the only person talking, so I get to take up all the time. Okay. My dad was born into a loveless world, to parents who didn't want him, but kept him in spite of themselves. He had no memory of ever being told that he was loved or being hugged in his childhood. His parents moved from one 2-bedroom rental house to another one, with his father always getting one room and his mother getting the other, leaving him with a little bed in the kitchen throughout his childhood. By the time he was 6 or 7, he had his first job when he asked the little corner grocery store to let him work, and then they regularly began paying him to sweep the sidewalk in front. Then the hardware store next door saw what he was doing and offered him the same opportunity. Pretty soon he was earning enough money to buy some school clothes and a few toys. I don't think, however, that his desire for work was just about the money. He saw a problem and he knew how to fix it, even at that age. I think that his sense of self-worth came from his identity as a smart and hard worker. It allowed him to be seen. And it's not like his parents were so poor. His father was a retired naval officer by the time my dad was born and worked as an accountant for San Diego County. So it wasn't a lack of money. It was a lack of love. But my dad learned about love and what it meant to be part of a real family from my mom. And it came at a cost that he was willing to pay for nearly 30 years as he gave up his love of Southern California sunshine to live in the dreaded Pacific Northwest in order to give us and himself the Norman Rockwell family that he hadn't known. My grandparents loved my dad so dearly, and the feeling was mutual. The first time he met my grandpa was to ask him for my mom's hand in marriage. My grandpa made him follow him around the farm all day before he finally stood still long enough to let my dad ask the question. But the truth is, my grandparents were instantly smitten with the hard-working college graduate naval officer who was in love with my mom. And he was so in love with her. My parents' story is a love story for the decades. It was intense and strong enough to pull them through some very difficult times and to deal with the serious baggage that they both had from his childhood and her earlier experiences. As I was gathering photos for an album I made this past week, which you can see, hopefully it's still going, I was struck by the overwhelming quantity of photos of my dad looking at my mom with total admiration. They were very much aware of how they complemented each other and full of gratitude for it. They absolutely revered each other. Their opposite strengths supported each other, and their opposite challenges just became comedy. My mom could laugh at my dad's bark more than anyone else could. Even just 2 weeks ago, as my dad started to grump about her lack of visual spatial skills in the way she put the hospice bathing chair in the shower, it managed to turn into a chuckle for all of us. My dad was notorious for taking forever to make decisions, and he could fill an entire yellow legal pad with pros and cons so long that the decision itself might pass. It's not that he was indecisive or unopinionated, but that he was a bit of an overthinker, a trait that I have inherited for sure. This wasn't the case, though, when it came to marrying my mom. He had barely known her for 2 weeks when he proposed in San Diego in June of 1968. They didn't have much time before he had to report for training as a naval officer. It was the Vietnam War, and after graduating from college, it seemed better to take a role as an officer than to wait for his number to come up. When he learned, however, in training that he was slated to fly planes for the Navy over Vietnam, he was faced with a moral crisis. He couldn't bear the idea of it, and so he called my mom from Florida, and they discussed their options. Would they defect to Canada together, or would he drop his officer status and become a regular old enlisted sailor on a ship? They chose the latter, and they learned that you don't give up officer status in the Navy without meeting with a lot of cold shoulders along the way. It was a choice he never regretted, however. In one of the last conversations he had with the hospice nurse, he shared his pride in declining the role of officer and spending his Navy years on an old piece of junk, the USS Hawkins destroyer, in Europe instead of in the Vietnam. When he made that decision, he then had 2 weeks before he needed to report back to Chicago. So he took his VW bug and a lot of no-dos, and he made it nearly all the way nonstop from Pensacola, Florida to Vancouver, Washington to see my mom before rolling his little car on the freeway in Idaho. Fortunately for all of us, only the car was totaled. He flew the rest of the way and had the week with my mom and her parents before shipping off again until the week of their wedding in December. When his service was complete, my parents returned to Vancouver, and my dad put his bachelor's in business to work as an estimator for Ikeville Howard's local carpet and drywall company. He and my mom also lived in and built a mobile home park for my grandparents. Soon they had saved up enough money to buy their first of dozens of homes, I think like 30-something. It was a little 1800s farmhouse for $18,000. He checked out books from the library and taught himself how to remodel anything and everything. So picture a library book up on the top of a ladder, and that's about right. It was just the beginning. Other than pictures of him embracing my mother, the most common photos you can see in the slideshow are of him working on creating or solving something. Whether it's laying a foundation, fixing an electrical problem, building a round wall, cooking up a dad concoction in the kitchen, sometimes great, sometimes interesting, designing unique 3D birthday cakes, we've had many of those, or mixing a dozen colors of paint to find just the right shade, which I too am guilty of. He was constantly thinking and doing. We don't have pictures of the hundreds of yellow legal notepads filled with a hodgepodge of everything, from journaling to stock codes to architectural plans to to-do lists all in the same pad. But no single object represents my dad's thinking and doing more than his collection of yellow notepads. My aunt noticed with amusement that there were a dozen new ones in his suitcase just a couple of months ago. And when my sister and my mom and I prepared his body after he passed, we sent him off from this world with a new one. Not only did my dad fully build 2 houses for our family and complete multiple massive remodels, including the one on my current home, for those of you that have been in it, you know it was a big remodel, but his growing expertise led to professional acumen as well. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I realized my dad didn't actually have an engineering degree. By that time, he had long since completed his MBA, but for various reasons, he continued working in construction. From his start as a humble residential carpet estimator to his work for commercial construction for McKinstry and Hoffman companies in Portland and Anchorage, by the time he retired, he had been the lead HVAC engineer on projects such as the Padres ballpark in San Diego and the San Diego Hospital. I didn't realize until much later in life how unusual it is for someone to have a career as an engineer without actually having an engineering degree. But it fit my dad. Intellectually, he was constantly curious and always learning. You could ask him anything. Beware, though, a question about how batteries work could result in a 2-hour-long explanation on a car ride to the beach. And it could be any topic: science, history, geography, whatever. We used to suspect that sometimes he would just BS the things that he didn't know, but whenever he was fact-checked, he was proven right. Even when it came to something we figured he couldn't possibly know, like the lyrics to the Bobby Darin song, "What a Difference a Day Makes." We were all wrong. He was right. He was our Google and our Wikipedia long before the internet, and he continued to be my first resource about anything and everything home maintenance, even up through this very fall. Because of him, I can paint a room without a mess, put up drywall, install light fixtures, fix a clogged drain, and countless other skills, both because he taught me how to do the things and because he showed me that it's possible to figure out things and solve problems on your own. Sometimes my dad's intelligence and drive made it hard for him to understand why others couldn't quite match his thinking or stamina. There were tears at the kitchen counter over math homework and other such moments. But mostly, he would just get frustrated with himself. Up until the last few years of his life, he had a familiar 7-word string of frustration that I won't repeat out loud right now in this place, but my kids know that it's Sometimes it would just be 2 of the words or 4 of the words. Sometimes it would be all 7 if he was really frustrated. But I noticed a long time ago that those words were never aimed at a person. He didn't speak to people like that. He just would utter them to himself in frustration when something wasn't working on a project the way he wanted it to. My mom's love and her family went a long way in healing my dad's wounds, but you don't escape from a childhood like that without some scar tissue. Between his extreme intelligence and his unmatchable stamina for work, and the trauma of his family of origin, my dad wasn't always easy. I don't need to spend time giving examples because truly they just don't matter anymore. But over the years, I've shed my share of tears and filled up my own journal pages and talked to my own therapist about how sometimes our relationship was a little complicated at times. I always knew, however, underneath all of it, even in the moments when it was really hard to feel it, I knew that his love was there. And I appreciated looking through pictures this past week, and these pictures here, to see evidence of it. And I found that evidence. Most of all, though, I felt that in these past weeks. My mom and sister and I were determined that my dad should exit this world the opposite as how he came into it. He was not ushered into this world with love, but he was ushered out of it with plenty. We spent the last days and weeks by his side, singing songs gently to him and with him, tenderly caring for every physical need we could address, but other than stopping the cancer, which was beyond us. It felt very much like he was fully able to receive and give love in those last weeks. There were no blockages left, and the veil that is between this rough-edged, individualized world and the complete love of the world to come was very, very thin indeed. Together, we helped create a sacred time and space where he was fully able to give and to receive love with all the tenderness that we had felt in the best moments of our lives, even at this, the worst of all moments. So there is no appropriate end to a story that you don't want to end. So I just say thank you for your patience in listening to these reflections. You've truly given me a gift by holding space and giving us a chance for me to eulogize my father and give him a proper send-off. I hope that you can feel all the deep love that we had for him and that he had for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen, for sharing such tender feelings. And I want to speak to your mom a moment, Nancy. I did have the good fortune of meeting you years ago, you and your husband, and always felt an incredible, loving presence that you have. And what a wonderful gift you gave to your husband to be such a loving soul yourself. I can only imagine that that was the greatest tikkun, the greatest healing for Robert to have in his life. So bless you. May you find comfort in the blessings of memory and the love in the generations of your family. The Kaddish is on page 103. And so let's respond to Gretchen's and the kids, the grandchildren. Let's all be present with responding with amens and the proper responses. Amen. Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabba Mivarach Li'alam U'Lalmei Almaya. Brichu. Amen. 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 May the Eternal One who makes peace in the heavens grant peace to us, to all of Israel, to all who dwell on earth. And let us say, Amen. Gretchen, as you expressed your appreciation for the community being present for you both last night and tonight, I want you to know that you give us a great gift by bringing the wholeness of your life journey, sharing both the blessings and the challenges of life. And that's a great gift that you give to us, to let us be strong as a community, to know each other. So thank you for that. Let's turn to page 4, and we'll close with Limnot Yameinu. Limnot yameinu, limnot yameinu, limnot yameinu kein hoda v'navi levav chochma. Limnot yameinu kein hoda v'navi levav chochma. Teach us to treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day, that we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Oh, teach us to treasure each day, that we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Oh, teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. V'navi, v'navi, levav chochma. Levav chochma, v'navi levav chochma. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. May you be comforted among all those who are mourning throughout this world. May you find comfort in memory and the blessings that you learned and will continue to learn from your father's life. May he rest in peace.
I know you don't come in and do this for everybody, so thank you. Thank you for being there for me.
Of course, Gretchen. I'm sorry, I feel like I was spaced out and I forgot.